collecting £40. You heard?
What's happening? This is Gina Yashere, comedian extraordinaire, and you are listening to New Star Radio on 98.7 FM. Don't turn that dial, or else I'll do something.
Welcome back, listeners.
Broadcasting across the city on 98.7 FM. New Style Radio.
Welcome back, listeners. I think New Star Radio wanted you to know that you're listening to New Star Radio. So, there we go. But we have in the studio right now, live, Star Etheridge, the spokesperson who covers disability issues for UKIP. We want to welcome you to New Style Radio.
Thanks for having me.
And we've had a few conversations when we were trying to organise all of this, and some of the things that you were talking about, or we were talking about, are such important issues, and that's really why, you know what I mean, I was glad to get you into the studio today. And you're also unique in this position, so can you tell our listeners why?
Well, I am the only spokesperson, minister, whatever, in any political party who's actually disabled. All of the other people who are in charge of disabilities for whichever party they belong to are able-bodied. So it does make a difference because I understand a little bit more about what the needs are, how people feel, how things can affect everything, especially government rulings and all kinds of things like that.
So why do you think it is that because we know that other parties have people with disabilities within them, why is it that sometimes people with disabilities shy away from these kind of positions? Also, you could look at that as women shying away from working with women because they don't want to be, stereotyped into those kind of positions.
Well, that's a good point. Recently over social media, I've been told that I am a token person in my position because they say UKIP have only let me do this because of my disability, not because of my ability and my knowledge and my experience. So I found that quite upsetting. I won't say offensive because I don't get offended by silliness, but I think it's better. Because I think in the public perception, it's if you've got a person who's disabled at the top of these things, I think people have more respect and think, well, they're going to understand. So the rules and regulations and laws that they make might be more beneficial.
Definitely. And, you know, it's a shame sometimes when people can't use their own experience to help to bring issues or to, trailblaze for others coming through. So for that reason, we salute you here at different angles. So let's get into some of these issues now. What exactly does your role consist of?
Well, at the moment, I've been dealing with people who have disabilities and aren't able to get council housing, benefit information, how the benefit system is changing, and just basically being there for anybody who needs me.
So in terms of, do you work on the policies as well for UKIP?
I have written the disability policy. It's not yet been adopted, so I'm hoping that next month at the conference that it will be adopted and I'll be able to release it to the world.
Oh, that's really interesting. So let's get into some of the crux of what is actually going on in the political system right now, because there are a lot of changes that are coming in regards to the disability living allowance, which is now being changed to the personal independent payment.
Yeah, so it's gone from DLA, as everybody who's on it knows it, and it's changing to something called PIP. And the biggest problem that most people have under the PIP system is that the government have changed the regulations on how far you are able to walk. And rather than it being 50 metres at difficulty, they've put it down to 20. Now, that wasn't in the consultation with all of the disabled groups, and because it hasn't gone through the consultation, there are a few court cases pending to see if they can change that. Now, there was no need to really change DLA. All they needed to do was to say, right, you need to have an assessment. Nobody who's disabled minds having an assessment as long as it's understanding their needs. So I just think it's change for change's sake, and to try and get more people off the benefits they need to help them get around.
But then what about the arguments that there are a whole load of people that are actually claiming these disability allowance benefits that actually could be going out to work, or claiming other ones in the meantime until they are able to access work?
Well, I don't think there's many of them, because most people, from my experience and even from the government's figures, don't claim for sickness and disability unless they have to. The fraud rate is only 0.3 to 0.5% of all claims. So that's a tiny amount of people who are kidding the system or have continued claiming after their condition has got better or they've had an operation or whatever. But the fraud rate's so small, so the people who get it do actually need it. And the myriad of forms you have to fill out, you might as well be a doctor, because you've got so many things to describe, and the medication that you're on and everything else.
So what is the difference between the disability living allowance and the personal independence payment?
Right, well, under DLA you have 3 levels. You have upper, middle and lower. So you're assessed as your mobility, as whether you're in one of those 3 groups. If you're in the upper group, you get the top rate of mobility, which means you can get a motability vehicle to help you get around, or you can use it to buy a specialist wheelchair. If you're on the middle and lower rates, it means that you have some problems. You can get a blue badge, but you don't need the same amount of help with your mobility. And then there's the care aspect as well. There's 2 tiers of the care aspect. Now, that's under DLA, but under PIP, I believe that it goes down to 1, and it just changes. So some people are going to fall through the system as where it was to how it's going to be. But until it's fully implemented and there's more and more people going through it, we're not really going to know the actual impact it's going to have on people. And a lot of the work done hasn't done any sort of impact assessment on how any of these benefit changes are going to affect the disabled, which is wrong. I mean, there is a petition going around, lots of people on Facebook and Twitter, and it's about forcing someone in the government to get an impact assessment done.
Yeah. So why do you think that the government have gone down this route? We know that they're doing a whole change of absolutely everything. We all recognise that there needs to be changes within the system. However, when it comes to some of our community members with disabilities, or our elders in our communities as well, who have done their thing through their youth, and now it's their time to, relax and enjoy their golden years. Why does it seem that it just seems so harsh on some of the most vulnerable people in our community?
Well, I think most of that is down to this, what do they call it? Removal of the spare bedroom subsidy. Yeah. Well, I didn't know there was a spare bedroom subsidy in the first place to remove it. Now, there's a heck of a lot of people who live in council accommodation who are on benefits because they're sick and disabled. Mm-hmm. Many have adapted homes so that they can actually use all of their home. These people cannot move because there isn't another house or a smaller house to go for. It would actually cost the councils a heck of a lot more to move them. So these people are stuck in limbo land, and all they can do is pay up out of their benefits so that they can stay in the adapted home that they have been told they need and the council have adapted for them. So those are the people who are actually being harmed the most, and those are the people I get a lot of phone calls and emails from.
So what makes UKIP different to to the other three major parties? That's your Conservatives, your Labour and your Lib Dem, in terms of where you're going with your policies?
Well, in UKIP we actually oppose this bedroom tax, removal of the spare room subsidy before somebody has a fit and says, oh, it's not a bedroom tax. We just don't believe that it's necessary. We believe it causes more harm than good, and it's penalising the most vulnerable people in our society and in every community, and that's not right. Those are the kind of people that David Cameron said, in a civilised society, you're measured on how you look after your most vulnerable people in your society. Mm-hmm. Well, he's not doing that. He's not allowing that to happen, and everybody is harmed. It doesn't matter where you live or whatever, what disabilities you have, or even abilities. You are being penalised for not being able to get a job when there's not any jobs around.
That's very true.
You're getting penalised because you can't work because you're disabled, and a lot of employers reluctantly will not take them. The government has closed a lot of the Remploy facilities where disabled people used to be able to go and work in an environment that understood their needs and gave them confidence and gave them experience of work, and they enjoyed it, but the government's closed those as well. So where are these people supposed to go? They are just being pushed and pushed and pushed further back, and being more and more vilified for being in that position, which is just wrong. It's inhumane.
Demonisation, would you kind of say, takes place where it just seems that a lot of the most vulnerable people in the community, although they do have their champions as well who are out there campaigning for their cause, it seems a lot of the negative stuff is being put in the press as a excuse for some of the things that are taking place right now. So what do you have to say to some of those politicians that are in power about what is actually being fed into some of our media zones? Well,
the media, I think a lot of the time, they take a stance. There's some who are left-wing, some who are right-wing. Now, Labour have said they won't remove the bedroom tax. The Lib Dems, well, I don't know what they're doing because they're so involved with the Conservatives that they might as well be the Con-Lib party, or Lib-Con, whichever way you want to call it. So they're not listening, and they're not coming into the inner cities. They're not coming to actually ask the people who most likely voted for some of them on a different manifesto, because the manifesto that they put out didn't have any of this in. So it's just like they don't care. They get into Westminster and it's like they forget that there's the rest of the country. They forget that it's the people who are their paymasters. They are not our masters. We pay them through our taxes. You know, whether you're unemployed or not, you still pay tax on certain items. You pay VAT. If you drive a car, you pay fuel duty. So whatever you do, you're actually funding them. And recently in the press, we saw something about them wanting a £20,000 pay rise.
Yeah.
I mean, they want a 20 grand pay rise, but they want 14 quid because a little old lady's got a spare bedroom and she can't move to a one bedroom place because there isn't any. Come on, I mean, it's a no-brainer really, isn't it? You've got to look at the cost and effectiveness of all of this, and it's just done purely to divide people even more and to get people on one side of it or the other. People saying, you know, oh, you should, you know, we don't get spare bedrooms. Well, how many spare bedrooms has David Cameron got in his various houses? Why not make people who've got second, third, fourth houses that lie empty a lot of the time pay more council tax? you know, there's a lot of ways that these things could be done. But the biggest thing that any party could do at the moment would be to, instead of building this stupid train line, this big boys train set on HS2, that 80 billion pounds could be used to build new council housing, because there's 1.85 million people on the waiting list.
Yeah.
And there's more people every day coming into this country, and there's nowhere for them to live. People are having to live 2-3 families to a house. It's getting back like it was in the 1920s. It's like we've not moved any further. They're pushing us back to Dickensian times, I feel.
I hear that. So what about those who say that the HSBC, you know, sorry guys, you know what I'm talking about, the what is it, the Big Boys Rail Train game?
The Big Boys Train set.
That's it. I like that, actually. However, what about those who argue that it actually is creating jobs throughout, because it does cover such a major span of the UK?
Well, it might provide jobs, but all of these jobs are going to be advertised on the EU jobs portal. Now, I don't know if you've heard of this, but at the moment there is 800,000 jobs advertised on this EU portal.
I did read something about it,
Yeah. And if you are coming from one of the other EU countries, and I don't blame them for coming, I don't blame anybody for wanting a better life. It's the regulations that have allowed this. If you're on 79p an hour in your home country, and you know you can come to England and work in Britain, and you're going to get paid more, then you'll do it. So a lot of those jobs won't go to local people all the way through where that line will go. A lot of them will go to people who've come over and have been paid £1,000 to come here by the EU. So it's not just that, you know, they're just turning up with no money. The EU are actually giving them the funds to go to another country to find work, if there is a job available through that portal. So again, it's not going to bring jobs to the locals. It probably will take a lot of jobs away from Birmingham, because if people think they can just get on the train and go to London, they'll do that. The cost of a train ticket, well, let's face it, Charmaine, you and I aren't going to be able to afford it. We just will not. There's no way on this earth we could afford a ticket on that train. They were talking £360 a few years ago as a basic cost. Well, I'm sorry, I can get to London in my car cheaper, and if it takes a bit longer, I'm not bothered. I'd rather save the cash, thanks.
And I hear that, but guys, I know you're all on the edge of your seats. We have Star Etheridge, and she is the UKIP's disability spokesperson right in the studio. We're going to be right back after this short commercial break. Do not move your dial, and we will see you on the other side of this.
Broadcasting across the city on 98.7 FM. New Style Radio.
New Star Radio presents the Big People Summer Party Jam Part 2 on Saturday the 31st of August 2013 at the ACMC 339 Dudley Road, Winson Green, Birmingham, B18 4HB from 8 till late. Come and join the party. Experience the buzz of a great atmosphere, good music and tasty complimentary Caribbean food, sponsored by Lick Your Fingers Caribbean Takeaway, Dudley Road. Dance the night away to jams from New Star Radio DJs. Tickets are just £7 and are available from the ACMC. Telephone 0121 455 6382. Smart dress is essential. New Star Radio Big People Summer Party Jam Part 2. Come and enjoy.
Enjoy the delights of Caribbean food in the friendly and welcoming atmosphere of Carib Grill Restaurant and Bar. Excite your taste buds with dishes from across the Caribbean. JA's Ackee and Saltfish, Trini Pilau Rice, Guyana's Matagee, Bajan Flying Fish, our signature flamed grilled jerk chicken, vegetarian options, and many more. Cooked with authentic herbs and spices, leaving a taste in your mouth that you'll want to last. Carib Grill Restaurant and Bar, 2 to 4 St Mary's Row, Moseley, Birmingham, B13 8JG. Offering the best experience in Caribbean dining. Call now to reserve your table. 0121 449 8818.
Birmingham. Ever wanted to go to Notting Hill Carnival in London but found it too much hassle to organize? Well, the Birmingham to London Notting Hill Carnival Weekender is here to help. From £120, you can get free entry to Industry Showcase, Sugar Sweets Memory Lane, and a hotel room for Bank Holiday Sunday. Plus a coach down to London for Bank Holiday Monday, stay in a London hotel, and a travel card to travel to Notting Hill Carnival or see the sights of London with a return coach to Birmingham on Tuesday morning. For more information, call 07903-862-831. That's 07903-862-831. Birmingham to London Notting Hill Carnival Weekender, 25th through 27th August.
And they're over the first hurdle. Ackee and Saltfish written by Yellow Yam. Pepper steak written by White Rice. Oxtail and butterbean written by Rice and Peas. As they go down the first hurdle. And there you have, oh my goodness, what is going on? Curry goat looks like he's taking over with green banana. Curry goat with green banana. And stewed chicken coming up from behind. Curry chicken as well. And white yam. Team fish and the grass taking the lead. But what is this? What am I seeing? It looks like fried chicken fall up. Fried chicken fall down. Come to Bailey's and pick your winner. At Bailey's, we don't serve fast food, just good food with excellent service. Our telephone number is 0121 359 2395. We also can be found on Just Eat. Bailey's have a 5-star category rating. We cater for all events from 1 to 400. Our opening times are 10 till 10, Monday to Thursday. Friday and Saturday, 11 o'clock until dark free. On Sunday, the times are 2 till 7 p.m.
Broadcasting across the city on 98.7 FM. New Style Radio.
Welcome back, listeners, and you're in tune to Different Angles, and I'm your host, Charmaine. We have a guest. Our guest today is Star Etheridge, and she is UKIP's disability spokesperson. So we've talked about some of the cuts. We've talked about how some of the new assessments will affect the bedroom tax, etc. But what about some of these hidden disabilities that are there that really affect the person's well-being, their self-esteem, their confidence, all those kind of inner things that are only displayed through its manifestation, really through depression, all those kind of different other things. And how in your role do you tackle or bring awareness to some of those kind of issues?
Well, it's funny. I did my very first speech to conference earlier this year, and invisible disabilities were one of the things I brought up. Now, one of my friends has a condition where basically she doesn't have an iris or something like that in her eye. And I apologise to Joanna if I've got it wrong, but basically it means that she's very, very, very partially sighted. And when people meet her, they say, "Oh, you don't look blind." How are you supposed to look blind? How are you supposed to look deaf? How are you supposed to look if you've got diabetes? How are you supposed to look if you've got heart failure and things like that? There's just so many things, like autism, dyslexia, and there's so many things that people don't know about. And if it's not physical, if you've not got like a bandage or a cast on your arm or leg, they don't see it. They'll say, "Oh, you look all right, you look well." And inside, there could be all manner of things going wrong.
I understand that, and listeners, you know that I've I've disclosed before that I have dyslexia, and I've had to go through my own battles and still battle with them now, especially around when it comes to the world of paper. I've definitely progressed from where I was. However, some of those fears are still there, whether it be sending emails, writing letters, in this role as a presenter, in the jobs field and things like that. And in your opinion, do you think that the government are taking some of those kind of more learning disabilities for now issues into consideration when they're looking at penalising around some of these benefits, etc.?
I don't think they are. I mean, the forms that you have to fill out.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're like mini novels, aren't they? And if you have any sort of dyslexia or other learning disabilities, it means you might not actually be able to see the words properly, you might not be able to read the question properly, or, most importantly, you might not be able to answer it properly. And that's where so many people fall down, because they don't answer in the way that the computer says no when it goes to the benefits agency. And then they're left having to go through sort of appeal systems and to get other people involved to help them. And sometimes people don't want to feel that they have to rely on someone else. They want to do it themselves. They think they should be able to. And it can cause them a lot of anxiety and fear when a form comes that they've got to fill in, or even just a letter from the agency. I mean, I think I'm quite well educated, but even sometimes I look at it and I just think, I can't make head nor tail of this. I'd need a degree in sort of,
bureaucracy.
Yeah. DWPEs,
And you know what, guys, I have to put a disclosure here. Myself has been through the process with the system around having to do these forms, all this kind of jazz by hand and all that kind of stuff. And, it has been messed up, which left myself in issues as well. So I say this to say that these are real issues, people, and we need to be aware that there are people who you may not even know that are sitting there silently fretting about some of the things that are coming into society at the moment, and don't want to out themselves because of some of the stigma that is put out there. I.e. myself, I get all the time, but Charmaine, you speak well, you look fine. But people don't understand the fears that I have when it comes to putting it down on paper, especially in some of the world and some of the paths that I cross, when you think to yourself, this is the world of paper, everything's so perfect. You can't send a politician with a few spelling mistakes, so then you have to send it to a friend here. Can you check this, check that, and all that kind of jazz? So I'll say it to say, people, it's not about feeling sorry for people, it's about recognising that everybody's different, and sometimes it's those differences that make us unique, that make us quirky, that make us, able to do things that sometimes the general public can't. Now let's have a look at some of the biggest brains in society, some of the wealthiest men, and have a look at some of the so-called learning disabilities that they had. I say really that it's the system that doesn't fit for everybody, so they've just labelled. So it doesn't really reflect on the so-called majority.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at Pete Waterman, the record producer, that gentleman couldn't read and write. I don't know if he can now, but he couldn't. And he's made himself a multimillionaire on what he knew and how he knew. Now, it just goes to show that if you've got the perseverance and the determination, even with a disability, whatever it may be, you can do some things. You might not be able to do all the things you want to do. I mean, I'd quite like to go dancing, but unless they have synchronised wheelchair dancing, I think I'll be a bit stuck. But, there's no matter who you are, where you come from, what your background is, whatever disability or ability you have, you can achieve. And if you look to those people who have achieved and you think, right, I'm going to do this, that determination can see you through. It can see you through some of the hard times when you're really, really down because you're scared, you're frightened, you're anxious, and you feel like you're the only person in the world going through it. It's about people talking to each other. You know, whatever community you're in, there's always going to be somebody who's got the same as you or has been through something like you. So just talk. Most people can talk, not everyone, but there are ways of getting messages to each other to help each other understand, and just give a thought for people. Don't feel sorry for them. I don't want to be felt sorry for because I'm in a wheelchair. I want people just to take me for me.
Yeah.
And it's the same for you, Charmaine. I mean, I know you have dyslexia, so if you send me a text and it's got a letter missing, I'm not going to phone you up and say, what you doing sending me a text with spelling mistakes? It would just be wholly wrong.
Yeah.
It's about understanding and caring for each other. We are human beings. We have our quirks, we have our differences. But what we have in common is we've got a head, we've got a brain, we've got a body. And what's inside is all the same. It's all full of what we want to be and who we want to be, and to give love to others.
And excuse my ignorance, listeners, but things around like mental health, depression, those kind of things, is that something that you look at in terms of your role as well, or is that something else?
No, I do look at that because I'm freely admit that I have post-traumatic stress disorder. So I'm on a myriad of tablets for that, and I have a therapist. So I have a psychotherapist, and I go, and it's called a talking treatment. Now, you don't just get post-traumatic stress disorder if you've been in the army and you've been in a battlefield. You can get it from anything. A child who's been abused, who's been neglected, a woman who's been raped, a man who's lost a best friend, things like that. There's loads of things that can actually cause you a trauma and bring about mental issues that can manifest themselves in anger and all kinds of things like that. And it's just about understanding that people need a bit of understanding and a bit of help and a bit of support, rather than sort of going, I'm not sitting next to you, you're the mad bus person. It's sit next to them, talk to them. You never know, they might be really interesting.
Yeah. How's about the relationship with the police in the way that they actually deal with people with disabilities? I heard of a case recently around a young man whose death goes back to this fancy word that I found last week when I was interviewing John Cotton, and it was multiple oppressions. And he's got the issue of being a young black man. He's also got his disability. He's also 18, all that kind of stuff. And this isn't just erasing. Can you just fill us in a little bit about, is there anything going on with the police around disabilities? Are they aware, even when they're arresting people, how to deal, say, with somebody who's deaf, or how to deal with somebody who may have a severe learning disability? Is that something that you've covered or will be covering?
It's something I have been looking at, because there's a lot of instances where people are taken into custody and they do have some sort of mental health issue. And it's been recently in the news, I think it was yesterday actually, that there's going to be a mental health nurse available. Some of them will go out on the beat, some of them will be in the station. Now, just putting that in place, if you've got somebody there who has got any sort of learning disability, or somebody who's deaf and things like that, then there's a nurse there who can help them, can sit with them, can probably calm them down, and if necessary, get them back on the medication. Because a lot of the problems happen is because some people forget to take the medication. And if they forget, they can end up looking like they're causing trouble or acting like they're drunk, and they're not. They could be having some sort of a seizure. And I've heard of cases where somebody has, missed a medication thing, and it's looked like they've drunk and they're slurring the words, but they're not. So, yes, we do need more people in the police service who have mental health experience. And there's a gentleman I have on Twitter, Mental Health Cop, I think he is.
Okay.
And he does a lot of work trying to get the public to understand that the police are looking at that and they know it's an issue. But again, a lot of it is down to funding, and a lot of it is down to what the new police and crime commissioners will allow them to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, Star, we're just coming up to the last minute and a half or so of the show. So, as I do with all my guests, I give the reins to you to say what it is that you've got to say to our listeners and to your listeners, because I must take my hat off to you guys. You guys know how to tweet and Facebook. The best I've seen so far. And, you know, even our Twitter here at New Style have commented on it as well, you know what I mean? So thanks for that. You're making me look good. So, but yeah, over to you, a minute or so, just to say what it is, your closing comments.
Well, I'd just like to thank Charmaine for asking me to come in, and all of the team. Everybody's been absolutely lovely. And if anybody at all, I don't care what you vote for, I don't care what sex you are, I don't care what you do in your bedroom, if you need help, phone me, contact me. I have a website, staretheridge.co.uk. Very simple. If you need help, I am there. That's all, really.
And that was so sincere. What can I say, guys? You're in tune to different angles of society. We've had Star Etheridge with us today talking about disability issues, and she is the spokesperson for UKIP on this subject. We also have Bill here hidden away quietly, you know, letting his wife do her thing. So we will be seeing you next week. Got some special guests, so you're going to have to tune in to find out who they are, although you Twitterers will find out first. I'll be back next week, and we're out.
Enter at 1. The Foreign Secretary says he's deeply concerned about reports that dozens of people have been killed in a poisonous gas attack in Syria. The Syrian government